Hi there, I'm back, and this is the final and third short video on writing, and this one is on conflict. And I just want to say thank you very much for joining me, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit more about writing and about character, like we learned in the second video, and a little bit about overall story structure in the first video. Again, this one is on conflict, and let me get over to my cheat sheet again. Excuse me. Okay, so conflict is one of the major elements that push a story forward. It starts the story and builds until the final major conflict scene, which we typically call the climax. After the climax, we resolve situations that have occurred in our story and hopefully end with an epiphany scene. There are three types of conflict. They are inherent conflict, internal conflict, and external conflict. Think of inherent conflict, the first one that I mentioned, as the thing that thrusts the story into being. In The Goldfinch, I want to use Donna Tartt's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel called The Goldfinch. Theo Decker is the main character. And we learn early on that a bomb goes off in a museum years before the story opens. And we only learn about it when the author takes us back in time to that day. So it starts off in the present. The story starts off in the present. When the bomb goes off, it kills a few people, including, and most importantly, Theo Decker's mom. After the start, we go back in time to that day, like I said, and inherent conflict is key to what happens to the characters after that inciting incident. The inherent conflict is like an explosion in and of itself, and that sprays itself and all of the conflict out onto the characters and into the future, if you want to think about it that way. It just speckles everybody. It hits everybody with its problems, mostly, of course, the main character. And it touches everything in the story and is carried forward until it's resolved in the story by the end, as with each other type of conflict, the internal conflict and the external conflict. So let's get on to internal and external conflicts. Internal conflict is the thing our main character carries around with them their entire life until we, the author, resolve it at the very end of the story. Using the Goldfinch again, the main character blames himself for his mother's death. He blames himself because she died in this explosion. I'm not going to give too much away. It's a fabulous story. But he must either learn to live with that pain that he's carrying around, and he's been carrying around since he was, I think he was like 10 when this story starts, 10 or 11. He's a young boy, and when the story in the present time of the story, he's around 20, in his 20s, early 20s. So he's been carrying it around for him for over a decade, and so he has to either live with that pain or get over it somehow. And during the inciting incident scene, we see a man with a young girl. So this is in a museum where this explosion occurs. We see that in this museum, there's an older man with a young girl. It appears that maybe he could be the father of the child, but he also could be the grandfather. He's about to steal a valuable painting, but dies in the explosion and hands off the painting to Tartt's main character, Theo Decker. Which leads us smoothly and conveniently into the external conflict and back to the present day, when we learn that the authorities have finally tracked Theo Decker down with this painting, they think, at a hotel in Amsterdam as he recalls the day of the explosion. So she's using the present day as a frame to talk about the past event and then what leads up to the present day. So she starts it in the present day. and backs to a time well before his age of in 20s, and then she moves through up to the present day where the authorities have tracked him down. External conflict deals with protagonists coming up against antagonists. Antagonists don't always have to be portrayed as totally evil, and protagonists should never be portrayed as totally decent and good, because nobody is totally evil and nobody is totally good. External conflict is built in risk and intensity, or I should say builds in risk and intensity until resolved at the end of the middle part of the book and before inherent and internal conflicts blend together and are resolved. So, what did I just say? So the external conflict will build to this boiling eruption point, whether that's a psychological eruption or whether that's an actual explosion. And then the internal and inherent conflicts resolve sort of together, because he has to come to terms, Theo Decker has to come to terms with his mother dying in this explosion that he had nothing to do with. It's just that he led her there, for a series of things happened that led him to them both, I should say, to go to the museum. Instead of going to school and instead of her going to work, they decided they would go to the museum because the mother loved the museum. So he needs to come to terms that it was not his fault, that he could never have prevented that unless he turned back the hands of time, could he prevent that and decide for her to go to work and him to go to school, and that would have stopped that inevitable explosion from killing his mother. Of course, we can't turn back the hands of time, and that's one of the longings that the character will carry with him probably for the rest of his life, but we hope that we'll always feel some at least comfort knowing that there was nothing that he could do. So those are blended, the internal conflict and the inherent conflict. And that's really the three types of conflict. Now there's tension and all of that. Tension and suspense are a form of conflict, but they are really literary devices and should be handled separately outside of these three main types of conflict. This is probably the shortest, and I bet for you the best of the three videos in my On Writing 3-part video series. I hope that you enjoyed it, and again, more importantly, I hope you learned something new that you didn't already know. And again, I was using my little funky Muscle Up the Gut of Your Story, How to Write the Novel workbook. And also, I'm always open to discussing one-on-one coaching if you think we're a fit. If you do, then get in touch. And until we meet again, God bless you and keep writing. Bye.